Welcome back, listener, to another exciting episode. In this episode, we will be discussing about secrets to landing a job at Google. As you know, Google is a dream company for many developers. So there are a lot of messages on LinkedIn that kindly tell us about the journey of getting a job at Google. I decided to invite a guest who is actually working in Google so that we can get a first-hand experience that what is their journey, how that guy particularly went into Google, and then they can also explain that what is the resources they have used to prepare for the interview and what are the tips and tricks. So let's get started. We have invited a very special guest, Faz. He is a software engineer at Google. So he can tell us about his journey and how you can prepare yourself to land a job at Google. So Faz, kindly tell us about yourself and what you have been up to.
Hello, everybody. I'm a software engineer at Google. I work on the Chrome OS team. My primary work area is graphics and gaming. So yeah, that's basically what I do.
Sure, great. So, can you share your personal experience? Like, how did you manage to pass all the different interviews at Google and finally get the offer?
So for me, it was kind of like I was working at a couple of startups here and there, mostly in the augmented reality and virtual reality scope, which was, I guess you could say, graphics kind of. And there were some graphics team at Google that were interested in my profile when I applied online to a couple of postings. And one thing led to another. And after 4 or 5 months of interviewing, etc., I ended up getting into Google.
Oh, that is great. Can you tell us about your journey going to US and before joining Google, like what are the different companies that you have worked with, and so that because a lot of viewers are not from US, so they can get to know like how, because it's not that easy just like apply on Google from for instance from Malaysia or from Pakistan, India, and then just like quickly getting a job. So there's like a backstory to it. Like a lot of people see post on LinkedIn and see, oh, this guy like is so lucky just get a job at Google or Facebook. So yeah, for this purpose, like tell us about your journey.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, it is a long process. So, uh, with regards to my journey, I kind of already, when I went into undergrad, I kind of already wanted to go to the US because I was interested in gaming at that time already. And I knew if I was to develop any sort of gaming or software, it was either the US or European market. And there, in my undergrad, I kind of like had this thing in my back of my head that, okay, if I want to go to the US, probably I should go for some higher studies or something. And I need to secure some sort of funding and do all the logistics, etc. And so I planned my 4 years with respect to that. And I kept changing the plan with, whatever I learned on the way. I wasn't really an expert in regards to it. Wasn't like I was born with all the humility and
Yeah,
knowledge, just learning things
yeah,
on the way. And I was lucky enough to get into Purdue University when I graduated. Uh, I managed to get funding from the computer graphics department as well. So that took care of the financial aspect of the planning. And once I graduated from there, it opened quite a few doors for me to work in US companies. And initially, I started from small startups. My first job was an internship at Medivis, which is a company that works on augmented reality surgery. Like they do brain surgeries using augmented reality, and they teach medical students in the US about the anatomy of a human body. Um, so I worked there for a short stint, about a month and a half, and then I changed my jobs to my first full-time role, which was at True Digital Surgery. It was another sort of robotics and augmented reality mixed startup for surgeries. They worked primarily on brain tumors. Uh, so I worked there for about a year, and at that point I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then after I developed like you know like a year of experience and got comfortable in the job market, I was like, okay, let's look outside and see what other good opportunities there are for me. And then I applied to various different companies. I got a few offers, and in the end, I decided to go with Google.
yeah, great. So, and I think there's a very valuable lesson for all the listeners, so that like it's not important that you get a job and then you move to US or Europe, because going to these countries, like it is very difficult, like, because the visa process and all that. So I think like there's a very good option that you go there first. Like if you have done bachelor's, you can apply for master's, or you can apply for PhD if you have already master's degree. So you can just go there first for all the studies, and once your studies are finished, then you can like start working in startups and small companies, and then you can go up and start working with big companies.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what are some of the valuable resources, courses, certifications that people should do to enhance their chances of getting hired by Google? Because a lot of people are talking about like different platforms like Lead Code, Algo Expert. So, what's your take on that?
I mean, by and large, Google is just another company, right? So basically, you need your basics and essentials. You can get them from Algo Expert if you want, Lead Code, etc. I think personally, the best place to learn these things is during your undergrad years. If you're like a computer science major, just make sure that you retain all that knowledge and you go and you practice. It's like going to the gym basically. You
Yeah.
practice more and you get better at something and you work out your uh, computational skill and you develop that. So that is number one. What you need to do, you need to practice. If you do it through undergrad, you can potentially skip most of the lead coding. But at that point, lead coding will just be to manage time and stuff. And speaking of time management, one thing that I genuinely believe that was the biggest factor was the fact that I did a lot of mock interviews. I went to various sites like cramp.com. I mean, they go there. The idea is you take an interview of somebody and in return they take an interview of you for preparation. You can get linked up with people from Amazon, Meta, or Google, or even if they're looking to change jobs and just get some valuable experience. So those mock interviews were really, really good. And the last thing that really helped me was the fact that I was able to identify my weaknesses, kind of. For instance, in my case, my weakness was dynamic programming. Um, and I struggled with that quite a bit. And so it's actually funny. I ended up purchasing a course off educative.io, which is like a Pakistani startup for computer science learning online. And
Okay.
it helped me a lot. So you don't have to get that particular course or something. Basically, get a course
Yeah.
that you like and kind of like, just make sure you're covering your gaps up.
Yeah, that is very true, because uh, I have heard a lot of people talking about like just algos, and I know like these big companies, they are like very focused on the basic programming knowledge, and I think the fundamentals, like a person know how basically, and they do not ask like as per my knowledge like very technology specific questions. They ask like general programming questions and check like how that guy is in basic fundamentals. And then the new thing that you have told us is that about the mock interviews. I think I can get a link from you for that particular website, and I can also post that in the video description. So anybody who is like planning on or like applying on Google or Facebook, they can, I think, use that particular platform as well. And it is also very important, like as you told, like getting to know like what is your weakness, and you cannot self assess yourself. Like it is better like you can talk to someone else, or like it's not important that it should be from a Google. Like it can be like a guy from any other company, but he's like way more experienced than you. He can tell like yeah, you can work on these particular things, and you can then uh, further like buy courses and YouTube videos and get expert in that particular area.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, can you discuss the significance of internship at Google? Because, like, a lot of people say that getting an internship first at Google is like the easiest way of getting a full time job at Google. Because internship, it's not like that hard, like the interview process and the whole like journey. So, what's your take on that?
I would say that nothing is easier or harder comparatively. Everything has different scope and everything has a different kind of difficulty. As an intern, and it's not just about Google. This is like the broad tech industry. You'd be expected to impress a team, right? You'd be expected to go in and have impact within the first 3 months and enough impact that you can get hired. Doesn't matter if it's Amazon, Meta, Google, whatever. Return offer is not guaranteed, especially in these markets. But I have seen a lot of like a significant number of Googlers that do get hired from the internship program. So it's definitely definitely a great thing to have. And yes, I think there might be fewer rounds in that whole process, but I'm not too sure since I'm not too familiar with the interns. But an internship does open doors for you. If you have an internship for, say, Google, other companies will be interested in you in in a similar field or a similar background, because these companies have grown to a scale where they have some sort of vested interest in every single area. So yeah, an internship will definitely
Yeah.
go a long way.
Yeah, I think so too. So that is great. So, and in your experience, how can you successfully secure an interview with Google? Because uh, we have been discussing about like how you can once you get the interview, like how what are the different processes. But like for most people, like they wanted to know like how you can get an interview. Like this is the most I think hard part, like getting to that spot, and then obviously the rest of it it's also included, but like the most difficult is like first they contact you and invite you for an interview.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's thousands of people that apply for every single job posting to any of these big companies. So I think standing out from the crowd, everybody has different ways. Some people have a amazing resume. Some people they might like, for example, some postings might require you to enter why you want to work for Google. Say they might write something very convincing. Some might have a very good cover letter because at the end of the day, it's a human reviewing your application. So if you want to stand out, do something that sticks out from everybody else. Other than that, it's all a numbers game. Keep applying. Sometimes you just need to get a
Yeah.
little bit lucky. I know I did.
Yeah, you're right. So yeah, I think like you should try like and then leave the rest like to luck, or you can say like uh just don't focus on like you have applied on like a lot of jobs and you are getting rejection. The best thing is like just keep applying on like whatever job you like or whatever company you like. You can keep applying, like even if you get rejected from Google last year, you can like apply again like next year, or like when you feel like you are ready, like after 2 3 years you're like, yeah, now I'm ready, now I have like the background, the portfolio, then you can again like apply for it. So with that, like my next question is, what are the effective ways to showcase your skill and experience outside the your resume and the job application form that you submit? Because there are like different various ways, like having a LinkedIn profile and then having personal websites. So what do you think? Like these things matter when you are applying at Google and Meta and Amazon?
I think these things definitely help because I have had a personal website. I think I still have a personal website. I don't know if the server is running anymore or not. But yeah, like I think the purpose of a portfolio is sort of like if people who are interested in a similar background as you, they see your portfolio and they might have some, let's say some manager sees your portfolio. He might not even be looking to hire somebody or looking to hire necessarily anybody. They might make space for you on their team just because they see that, okay, you're committed to this area or you're interested in something that the team is interested in. They see value in what you do. So I think it's very important to have some sort of portfolio showcase that. A lot of people like having GitHubs. I personally think that having a GitHub is a good to have, but not a necessary must nowadays because everybody has a GitHub. What's more
Yeah.
important is having something like a website, having something like on LinkedIn at least, where you're carefully explaining what you've done so that people, even technical people, can understand, okay, this is this guy's background and this is where he or she is going in the future.
Yeah, you're right. Because I also think like if creating like your own personal site is like too much of a hassle for anyone, then they can simply like just like uh, be active on LinkedIn and like fill in all the sections, like ask your peers to give you recommendations, and also tell other people your network about like the projects you are doing or the good practices, and even like sharing blog posts. Like I remember like when I started like creating videos and blog posting, and it was like my third or fourth video. Like I have like basically no audience, you can say. And then a guy from Amazon actually contacted me, and they're like, "Yeah, let's hop on a call." And then also like I have been contacted with people from Snowflake. I have done like different consultation work with Redis, so big companies. So it is the thing that once you showcase your skill, you put like different materials, and it's not for the purpose of like making money. Like you will post and then you will get like a lot of users you will make money. It is just like to help others. Like this is even when I'm creating content, and I know like a lot of people, they're creating content, making videos or blog posts or whatever. So the main goal is to provide meaningful content to the users, other users. So if you do that, then in that case, like obviously there are a lot of other people on LinkedIn. They will check that this guy is more focused towards delivering value, and he's a team player. He's not that kind of a player. If he knows something, he's like, okay, I know it, just not tell anyone. So this also tells a lot about the person as well. So I think it's a good thing to have, and everyone should work on this, because these are, I think, the small things that basically differentiate you from all other like thousands or millions of other software developers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, are there any like specific qualities or skill that Google looks for during the interview process that may differ from other companies? And how can applicants align themselves with those expectations?
So when you interview at Google, you get a set of instructions, and in those instructions, you also kind of like Google's cultural values and everything is highlighted on their website, and they basically tell you that we try to focus on the user, we try to do something great, not just good. We try to, you know, we try not doing evil. We try doing our best. So if a candidate aligns with those values that they have online, it's a very big plus. And at times, this is something that can make and break a candidate's application. You could be a perfect programmer. You could get everything right, but if you don't fit the culture, if you don't fit the area that you're going to work in, it's hard to. I would say it's hard to get in as a candidate. I'm not particularly sure about the statistics on this, but I would say it's hard.
Yeah, you're right. So I think it is best like whoever is applying like on in Google or even other companies as well, like first visit their website or their social media, just get to know about the culture. And because you can also know like if you, for example, if you are an introvert, or like if you're someone like you don't like to be in a particular company or culture, so you can like basically tell like, yeah, I can just like it's not a good fit for me. So I think like it is important to know about this before basically getting hired. And the next question is, can you shed light on like various rounds of interviews in Google, like in detail, like what are the different rounds and what are the particular agenda in each interview round?
So every candidate's interview experience will be a little different because I mean it depends on what Google wants at that time and what kind of policies they practice because these things keep getting updated. So I don't want to say something that somebody comes and they're like, oh, he said that thing and something else happened. So I'll just focus on the broader aspect. Generally speaking, they do a mix of online assessment, phone assessment, and on-site interviews or virtual on-site interviews, like any other tech company. Um, you're expected to have, you know, a level of understanding about coding. You'll be expected to write code, of course, as for any software engineering job. There will be evaluations on, you know, whether you're a fit for the culture or not. You know, different kind of aspects, and you know, a number of people will come together and make a call on the final decision on whether a candidate is a fit for Google or not. And from there, there are some internal processes which I cannot talk about here,
Sure, sure.
which go forward. And you know, at the end, the candidate finds out the result, whether they are hired or not, and that's pretty much it. That's like a broad aspect, and it varies. Like for example, um, some candidates may experience that they might have something, say, like a system design interview, and some might not. For more senior levels, I think in the tech industry, it's not expected that you code as much, but it's expected that you would have a bigger scope, if you will, as compared to a fresh college grad. You would be able to see different moving parts in a system. So that kind of stuff.
Yeah, correct. And like I have also heard like you can tell from your experience like there are like multiple rounds like usually like, and it all depends upon like different companies. Like previously I remember like there used to be like uh 2 or 3 rounds, and then like eventually like all the companies started having like 4 or 5 rounds. Like once one or two round on like phone call, and they're like bit casual, just get to know you, you're interested on the in the position, then like coding interview challenge, you submit an assessment, then like discussion on that particular thing, then like sometimes like the solution architect aspect, like how much do you know about that? So what's your experience in that case?
So if I remember correctly, I had about 7 rounds. Um,
Oh,
but again, every candidate's experience is a little different.
yeah,
And I
definitely.
did round. Like, for example, like I can even talk about other companies, right? So uh,
Yeah,
Amazon, for example, gave me like 3 rounds. Apple gave me 8 rounds. Google in particular gave me seven in this case, but there are other candidates which may have more or less depending on what they're being hired for
yeah.
and what they're looking for.
Yeah. But like still like 7 round is like a big number. Like I'm just asking you that like there are a lot of people, might be that someone who is listening to this podcast, he's on like round 2 or 3, and he's like, or like round 5, and he's like, yeah, I've done like 5 rounds, still I haven't received any like final offer or final verdict. Like what is wrong with me, or like I'm not getting hired? So just like there can be like 7, 8, as you mentioned, rounds. So just you
Yeah,
have
I think,
to, yeah. Go
sorry
on.
about that. I think it's just important to take one round at a time and to break it down into small chunks. Don't worry about an interview once it's done. Once it's done, it's done. You can't change anything. Don't email or anything like that necessarily, unless, of course, it's a thank you email or something like that. But just forget about it. Focus on the next round. Focus on the next company. You've done all you could. You've done your best. Whatever you did was perfect from your standpoint. And now, if you made mistakes, just improve on them. But stay focused. Focus on the next round. Don't let one bad round ruin the next. Say if you have 4 more rounds after this, don't let one round ruin the next four. So yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And can you share any success stories, for example, of individuals who landed job at Google despite like initial challenges, or they have unconventional background, or someone who is like who is not from software field, and then they are still working at Google?
Oh yes, I have a really good friend from China who was in the actually architectural, I believe it's called area. So he was an architect. He came to the US. He came to my university and he switched programs in his master's. And he was quite aged. He was I think 35 at that time. And you know I was really impressed by the fact that he did not know how to code, but he would often ask me questions about, okay, how do I, for example, write this function? How do I make this? How do I use this library, etc., etc. And he actually ended up getting an internship at Google at the age of 36, and he ended up going further and getting a full-time offer, and he still works at Google right now. So his story is quite inspirational for me.
Yeah, and for a lot of other people as well, like it's because as we are discussing about like a strong cultural fit, like either this person is a good fit for the company, this person is eager to learn new technologies. So they also like check these traits as well. They are not only just focusing on the coding aspect. So yeah, I think this might be the case in that guy story as well.
Mhm. Definitely, definitely.
So are there any like specific programming languages or frameworks, or you can say technologies, that applicants should focus on to increase their chances of getting hired by Google?
I personally think that this is not just for Google, but this is for the wider tech company, tech scene, that you should program in an interview in the same programming language that you use for everyday work. Now, a lot of people might come at me and be like, hey, Python's faster, smaller, neater. Yes, absolutely. I understand that's the programming language of choice for most candidates, at least from what I've seen. But um, in my experience, I'll give my example. So I use C++ in my day to day, and I gave all
Okay.
my interviews in C++. I do it. It's not because C++ is better or anything like that. It's just the language I'm comfortable in. It's just who I am. And what that did was it allowed me to use what I practiced at work in my interviewing, and it showed a high level of progress in the language. Another thing that I would do, it would set you apart because think about this: if you have 10 candidates, eight of them are say choosing Python, and there's nothing wrong with choosing Python. This is not a negative thing. But if
Yeah.
you want to stay in the mind of an interviewer, he or she may remember you more likely if you are using a programming language that's different from other people. That is not to say that choose a programming language that is unique or uncommon, but choose a language that you are working on. It normally is in Python in most jobs, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Like it's important because I think like most of these coding editors they have the drop down. You can choose in my case, like I usually choose JavaScript. So and why like for in my case, like for instance, I also know Python, so I choose Python, and maybe like I'm stuck in something where I'm taking a lot of time. So whatever you are doing using a particular language in your day to day, just choose that and work on that. And like, what is the technology stack you're using right now? Like when you're working uh, in Google.
I think at Google I touch a lot of different programming. So here's the funny thing: I haven't written. I think out of all the code that I write maybe 1 or 2% in C++. I
Okay.
use languages like Rust, Go. I use a lot of Bash, a lot of scripting. Um, uh, I write some So since I work on OS, I write a lot of UDEV rules and things like that. Basically low level memory management stuff and low level stack stuff. So it's it's a different for me. It's like a really dynamic range of different technologies.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think this is a very good example. Like that's why when they are interviewing you, they're not asking like all the questions related to a specific framework or technology, because once you get hired, they are like working on like different sort of like projects and different fields, and they are like new innovations. So it can be a case that you're working in something that is very low level on application like architecture, how it works, or like with new chips or new graphic card, you have to make it work your application. So you have to be good in programming in general, and you have to have that uh, learning capacity to learn any new technology very rapidly, and then start like working on it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And what are some of the common misconception people have about Google job application process and how they can overcome?
So I think people underestimate how easy it is to get an initial screen from Google. So it's not that uncommon to get at least an initial screen from Google, uh, like an initial interview or something, because I believe some of the process might be automated, and a lot of people do end up getting uh, an interview call or an interview assessment or something like that. But so a lot of candidates, what happens is that they apply once and they're like, "Oh, Google rejected me" on that first screen,
Hmm.
when sending them anything. And then they don't apply again because, hey, Google's rejected me. And I think that's a really big misconception. I think if you haven't talked to a person at Google, you should keep applying. In my personal experience,
Yeah.
you should keep applying until you at least talk to somebody. And if there is any such thing as, oh, you can't be hired for X amount of time or something, which some companies practice, I'm not sure if Google practices or not, but if there is something like that, usually these companies let you know. So don't get bogged down by being rejected once or twice. Just keep applying.
Yeah. That is good to know. And in terms let's talk about like you are hired in Google. Okay. So now what are like the main KPIs that they look into in a particular individual, like that he is doing good or like he can grow. So if you are a Google developer, like what are the things that you can do to excel?
So um, from what I have understood is that it's all about the scope of your work, right? So say you came in, your scope was that you're an engineer who needs help, etc., uh, from your peers, and that's perfectly fine. People here are generally very helpful and stuff, but it is on you to learn, on you to grow your mindset so that you one day can help others and you rely less and get more independent as an engineer. And I think this happens in mostly every company. They expect you to have this mindset of taking on a larger scope slowly and they expect you to not be at, say, in 2002, you were in at X level. In
Yeah.
2003, they expect some form of improvement. They don't expect you to say stay on the same level. They expect a slight but gradual improvement, which over a number of years accumulates into something that makes you, say, a principal engineer, somebody that has vast knowledge in a specified special field. You don't need to be a jack of
Yeah.
all trades. It's good if you are,
Yeah.
but you need that expertise in that one particular area so people can rely on you and look at you for knowledge.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, that is very important that you have that one particular domain in which you are continuously learning, and all, and you're following that, and along with that you are learning all other stuff, so that you become like, after like few years you become expert in that particular trade. So yeah, that is very insightful. And can you provide some insight into Google company culture, and what are the qualities and value they have, and what is in simple terms, like what is day to day routine, you can tell about yourself.
So in my experience, Google is generally pretty respectful about your boundaries, and they don't really care about what times you work, how you work, as long as you get your work done in a manner that is acceptable. So say somebody doesn't like working at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m. That's fine. They don't have to. And let's say somebody wants to work a little bit later. And I mean, it varies from team to team, but in my personal experience, they're pretty flexible. They trust you, that you know what you're doing, and you will get your work done. And it's a very collaborative environment. People are there to help you. People are not there to, say, step on you. People are not there to drag you down, because there's an understanding that if an individual grows, it only strengthens the team, and the team rises together. At least in my experience, that has been the case.
Yeah, that is good. Like, obviously, they focus on the value aspect, like how that person is delivering in terms of value, not in terms of how he's at what time he's coming, at what time he's going, and all that stuff. Like, I think like a lot of companies have recently like adopted that model, like just like focusing on getting the value rather than just like focusing on all the operational aspects. And can you tell us about the events and all the extracurricular activities like that is going on?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have different kind of activities. I personally play in the GFIT Cricket League. So we have a few pitches on campus. There's soccer. There's a ton of stuff. Like there might be some seasonal themed events going on, etc. And there might be, let's say your team did a launch, there might be an event for that. There might be offsites and stuff. So there is a lot of fun, yeah, in general at the company.
Yeah, that is good to know that you are also like working, and then like, because when companies have a good culture, I think then obviously the employees also love going to the job rather than just like waiting for Friday.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up like this conversation, do you have any final advice or key takeaways for the listeners who aspire to land a job at Google?
Um, in general, I believe that one needs to have a long-term plan and one needs to stick to it. In my case, I think the main thing that made me so I've been before I was even hired at Google, I was rejected by Google 2 years prior to that, and I wasn't able to get an interview for 2 years from Google. But what really helped me was trusting the process, sticking to one thing, being like, okay, I like this particular area. I'm going to learn about this area. You know, I'm not going to be hell bent on sticking to one technology or one programming language or one framework. I'm going to be open and I'm going to increase my expertise and I'm going to work for, say, small companies, and gradually make my way up, because the first company I worked for was a company of 7 people, then 60 people, then
Yeah.
110 people, and then eventually Google, etc. So plan
Yeah.
for the long term, um, and don't worry about immediate results. You will get the result eventually.
Yeah, that is very insightful. And with that, thank you, Faz, for sharing all the expertise and sharing light onto how to basically land a job at Google. We greatly appreciate your time and insights.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that, Zephyr. It was wonderful coming to your podcast.
Yeah. And then that brings us to end of another exciting episode. We hope you find this conversation insightful and informative. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes in the future. Remember, like keep working on yourself and keep applying onto the jobs regardless of all the rejections. And have a nice day.